Welcome to Independently Speaking, the podcast from the Independent Schools Association. ISA represents head teachers leading independent schools across the UK, each one unique. From small community schools to specialist institutions focused on performing arts, outdoor education, faith, sport, or special educational needs. ISA members reflect the remarkable diversity of independent education. Join us as we hear from school leaders navigating the challenges and opportunities shaping their schools and the wider sector. And now, here is your host, ISA Director of Education and Inclusion, Helen Stanton-Tonner.
Welcome back to Independently Speaking, the ISA podcast that celebrates the innovation, uniqueness and spirit of our independent schools. I'm your host, Helen Stanton-Tonner, the Director of Education and Inclusion at ISA. Now, today's Spotlight episode takes us to an iconic and unique setting, Summerhill School, which was founded in 1921. Summerhill is globally recognised as a pioneer in democratic, self-governing education, built upon the radical philosophies of A.S. Neal. As you'll hear, Summerhill is not just a school, it's a living, breathing community where freedom, responsibility and equality guide daily life. So let's step inside. Now I'm here at Summerhill's wooded campus in Leiston, Suffolk. It's quiet, it's modest, yet it's full of energy and history. And with me is Zoe Neal-Redhead, Principal of Summerhill since 1985 and daughter of the founder. Zoe, thank you so much for welcoming us today.
You're welcome. Look forward to showing you around.
Now we're here at the entrance and I can already hear the birds and there's lots of trees. How old is the setting itself?
There's 12 acres of ground here, and that house was built in the 1880s, round about the same time as my father was born, actually. There is a brick round the back which has a date on it, and we're not sure if that was the actual date when the house was built, but it's round about that.
Yes.
There's a few names of people who possibly were the builders. So it was a private house, and it actually has a connection to Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, who you all know as, founder of hospitals, first doctor, etc., first woman mayor, I believe she was, of Aldborough. So her family will have lived here. I don't think she actually lived here, but of course she would have come to tea, and she only lived down the road. So that's a really nice connection, actually, that it was kind of quite a radical setting. But the man who owned it started Leiston Works.
And you've got quite a winding path down. You've kept it looking really natural, and it almost still feels like a private house rather than a school.
I suppose so. I mean, it's just evolved the way it's evolved, really. It's our home. It is a private house. It's our family house.
Yeah. and as we sort of walk through the grounds here, you can almost feel the freedom of the philosophy. And so, can you explain the cornerstone of Summerhill's ethos, that freedom and not license? Could you explain that to our listeners?
Well, freedom not license is very, very simple, really. You can do what you like, provided it doesn't impact upon somebody else, basically. So you can wear what you like, you can eat what you like. I mean, I'm talking broadly here, of course, but you can't play your trumpet at midnight, because that impacts on other people. So that would be license. So freedom for us is about individual freedom. It's about being able to do the things, be the person you want to be, do the things you want to do, provided they don't impact on somebody else. Right. So if you want to skateboard instead of going to maths, that's fine. But if you steal someone's skateboard and instead of going to maths, that's not fine. And it would be brought to our school democratic meeting, and then cases are dealt with twice a week in our meetings. Mostly they're fairly low-key sort of harassment, or he borrowed my bike without asking, or, she said she didn't like the trousers I was wearing, normally it doesn't ever amount to sort of serious bullying, or very, very rarely. And the community deals with it by meting out fines or strong warning, and that's how our freedom not license works.
And your school is now known as sort of one of the oldest democratic schools in the country.
I think it's the oldest democratic school in the world.
In the world, yeah, absolutely. And your staff and pupils, as you mentioned, sort of meet together, and they have quite an equal voice in these meetings.
A completely equal voice.
So how does it sort of, you've mentioned a bit about the meetings themselves, but how does it work in practice? Because this is going to be very unusual for a lot of listeners.
Absolutely. Well, in practice, I would say that when visitors come to our school meeting, the first thing they say is, my goodness, it's better organised than the House of Commons because it's quiet, it's well ordered. We have a chair and the chair is in control of the meeting. The chair has ultimate power according to our laws, and it's just a very ordered. Most of the pupils and staff in the school will come, so you might have anything up to sort of 30, 40 people, but it's not compulsory, so some of the younger ones may not come, or if there's something going on. But most people want to come because it's the heart of what we do. And we do it twice a week at 3:15 on Mondays and Fridays. And anything can be brought up. So I'm just trying to think, in the last meeting, somebody brought up, you have to propose you can use incense and things because of fire risk. And she said, could she keep the matches in her room rather than have to go somewhere else? And that was a proposal, and then people vote on it. We all have an equal vote, and the chair counts the votes, and it was carried. And then again, you might get something where somebody might be, we were trying to do something and somebody was making lots of noises and being irritating, and then there might be we have ombudsmen, so there might be, was an ombudsman called, and the ombudsmen are just mediators. They don't really have a lot of power, but they're mediators.
And are they students and staff?
They're mostly students. I mean, occasionally a staff will run, but mostly it's students. And you have to have been here for 2 years, and you have to be over shack age, so I guess you'd be sort of 12 plus and been here 2 years to be an ombudsman. And that's voted by ballot. We take the book around and we do like a vote.
Yeah. And with the discussions in the meetings, you mentioned things about sort of like everyday actions and choices, but do you also discuss the curriculum that's being taught?
No. There's a very clear, the meetings about our everyday lives in the school. We don't have the children don't decide on who we employ, they don't decide on what the fees are, they don't decide on the curriculum. This is a school. And my father particularly didn't want the children to be involved in so-called adult decisions, and I think you'll find that a number of democratic schools throughout the world have, in my view, made that mistake of trying to make it a whole, everybody makes these decisions. And he wanted the children to be children and get on with their lives and be free to think about the things they wanted to think about and play on their skateboards or do whatever they wanted to do. And he didn't want them worrying about the school's finances. Yeah. They're not ready to do that, the children. So the idea is very much for them to have a children's life. So we have staff meetings, the staff do make decisions, but we can't make decisions that will cross over with the meeting. And we all know what we're doing, so don't worry, we do know that division, but occasionally there might be something where we'd be talking about something in a staff meeting and somebody might say, actually I think we need to take this to the school meeting, because it probably isn't really a staff decision.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice. I like that point about you saying you're allowing children to be children. I think that is absolutely wonderful.
That's what they need to do. They don't want to be worrying about, what the cost of the fees and everything else. It's not something that they should be concerned about. And when you think of all the things nowadays that you have to do, all the paperwork you have to do, all the different taxation, I mean, it just wouldn't be feasible. But I also know that in some schools they very successfully, for them, vote in the staff, sort of reiterate their vote for the staff each year. We've never done that. It's always been, it was my father's decision in the early days. There was, I think, a story where somebody said that he met my dad on Liverpool Street Station, had a cup of tea, and my dad said, yes, you've got the job. I mean, we're going back to the 1930s, but still, that was, and it's never, I think in a way it can change the relationship. I certainly know here, I mean, again, it works successfully in other schools, but here it would change the relationship if the staff are all thinking, oh, the children are going to vote at the end of the year as to whether I should stay or not. It would. We're equal. We're friends. We're all mates. And sometimes children come with a bit of an attitude towards grown-ups, and that breaks down after the first few terms, and then they realise, actually, we all scratch ourselves. We're all human beings, and that's something that's very, very important to us, which I think does not occur in the outside education system, and I think it's a real shame. I think first names, able to rag each other, get on with it, and be mates. I mean, mates if that's what you're going to be, but not in a force. So like, come on, everybody, let's all be equal and friends. We don't behave like that.
There's like a mutual respect.
Yeah, and just a friendship, and a fondness.
Now you've got, as we're coming sort of around the corner here, obviously this is a large tarmac area in front of the main house. What are all the buildings that we can see?
Well, a lot of the buildings were here originally, so over there were the original stables and coach house, and but the pink building there is the theatre, which is kind of multi-use. We use it as a theatre, but it's also a lovely space for doing sports workout. There's actually a pool table in there at the moment, and people can go and play pool in there. And then we'll walk round there. They're mostly classrooms on the outskirts. There is class 2, which is our senior primary area.
And was that building here originally as well?
No, I built that as stables because I actually was trained as a horse riding teacher, and I had a stable block there. But it's now been adapted to class 2 and it's staff accommodation. Quite a lot of the buildings you'll see will be staff accommodation.
Now, one of the things which you have already sort of referred to is here at Summerhill, sort of classes are optional. They can choose not to go. So for many listeners, that's going to be sounding almost unimaginable when you think about traditional schools.
That is the controversial thing about Summerhill. I mean, Summerhill can be perfectly accepted until you mention, the children don't have to go to lessons.
But your students still thrive academically, though.
They do.
How does that journey happen?
It's a difficult one. I wouldn't want to be critical of the education system, but for me, from the evidence that I see and have seen, throughout my life, it's very difficult to say that children should actually be at school from the age of 5 until the age of 15 or 16 in order to take their GCSEs, because I see a different pattern altogether. And in a way, we've been fortunate enough to study children's learning, looking at free-range children, whereas most people would have to look at them in the structure of the education system. And what we see is, we haven't done studies on it, we're busy running our school, but what you see is that there are learning patterns, the way children pull in and out of things, the way children and teachers will probably notice that all over when they're teaching, that certain children are really engaged for a while, and then suddenly they seem not to be that involved and not to be actually learning. Well, of course, when our children are like that, they can run out of the classroom and do something else. So I'm talking about younger children here, primary age children. So we tend to see a sort of hit it, advance and retreat, and they'll go in and be really active and busy, and then they may, and the weather may have something to do with it too, But it's very interesting. So, but when you're motivated to learn, when it's coming from you learn very fast.
And does that style of sort of teaching and imparting knowledge on students attract a certain type of teacher?
Obviously, yes. It's a lot of people have read A.S. Neil in their, in their younger days or when they were training. A lot of colleges still, talk about A.S. Neil. So we do get a lot of interest from people who want to come and give it a try and be here for a while. What normally happens is they say, I thought it'd be really nice to come and see Summerhill and perhaps stay for a couple of years. 5 years later, they're still here. Because it's a very, you can imagine for most teachers, you're teaching to an audience who need to be there every day, whereas here there is always that moment when you're sitting in class thinking, nobody's coming. What have I done wrong? But of course you very quickly begin to understand the nature of the children, and it's nothing to do with you. It's nothing to do with what you may have planned. Again, I'm talking primary here all the time. With the older children, when they move on to sign up, we call it, where they actually sign up for specific classes. So we've got an English teacher and a maths teacher and a science teacher, and when you sign up for the classes, then you're making a decision probably based towards GCSEs, and from then on you are more likely to attend every day.
And one of the things which all schools like to develop, obviously, are confident, capable and compassionate young people, and that's one thing that your students are known for.
We tick all those boxes, but we tick it that's our default setting. I had some girls come to me probably 5 or 6 years ago now, some teenage girls, and they said, I think we really need to do some sort of feminist talks and get some I said to them, Summerhill does that as a default setting. You know, you meet any Summerhillian from the 1930s to now, and you're not going to find the little faded flower of a woman feeling bad about her gender. Far from it. And nobody says anything about it. We don't build the girls. I mean, they just are part of the community, and they're equal, and they know it. Yeah. That's the best learning you can have, really. Much better than sitting everybody down and saying, you know, we're all as good as the men. No, they know, because they deal all the time, live together.
Yeah, and you've scaffolded them to be able to develop as they.
This is just the setting. The default setting at Summerhill is that we're all equal and we get on with who we are. Morning. We're just having a quick look. That's all.
Hello.
But
it's a lovely space.
Yeah, it really is a lovely space. Lots of children just come and sit in here because it's just a lovely place to be. And then from there they might think, oh, actually I think I might make something after all, you know. They make all sorts of things, from furniture to, you know, toy guns or whatever they're playing with at the time.
And because of the way it's laid out and because of the workbench, they could make a big piece of furniture, couldn't they?
And everything. And then there's a metalwork next door. My son Will, who's really the woodwork teacher, he does something called Damascus steel, where you hammer out the steel.
So you've got the different lathes in there, haven't you? I could imagine that at a busy time it could be very, you know, productively noisy in here.
It's lovely. It's a really lovely space. One of the best places in the school, really, because there's always something, you know, nice, even if it's just sitting looking at books. We have a sign-out system of pegs. When you go out of the school, you move your peg. You don't have to sign out. And these are all the pupils who have left us.
They're all very individual, aren't they?
Yes. And it's sort of a rite of passage thing almost. When you leave, you bring your peg into the woodwork and hang it up.
Hang on the rafters of the ceiling. No, they're really nice. And that's instead of registers, you said that people just bring their...
Yeah, well, we were required many years ago when we were being inspected an awful lot. They said that you must have a sign-up system, all schools do, and we realised that again, because of we don't want children having to go and find a grown-up before they go shopping in the town. I mean, doesn't work with our philosophy. Yeah. So one of the staff came up with the idea of the pegboard, which I'll show you. And the pegboard's now become quite iconic. You know, did you know about the Summerhill drama that's on Amazon Prime?
No.
Well, there was a drama made in 2008 about Summerhill. It was a 4-part drama made for CBBC. The beginning of the film shows our pegboard, but it was made here in the school with the school Summerhill children as extras. Yeah. So it was quite widely.
Okay, so we're going into the main building now. Oh, is this the pegboard? Yes. Oh, this is amazing. So this is a large wooden board with lots of with these nailed pegs that they can hang hooks on them. They can hang their individualised pegs. I think that's a wonderful idea.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Well, that is quite an iconic system. I don't think I've seen that anywhere before.
And it's completely community-led. You know, it's up to the community. If you move pegs, and you shouldn't do, you get a bit of a fine in the meeting. So this is the graffiti wall. It's the only wall in the school that you're actually allowed to paint. But since somebody painted that big heart about a year ago, nobody seems to feel that they want to paint over it. They all feel a bit respectful of it. Right, dining room in there. There's a piano in there. And we sometimes use it. We had singing in there yesterday, choir in there, so we sing in there, or we sometimes use it for other social things, but it's actually the dining room.
It's a really nice room, isn't it?
It's a lovely room. Beautiful sun coming into it. It's one of the nicest rooms, actually.
And these, your dining tables are large tables. Is that designed to get people to get joined together? Or?
It's just they've been there forever. That's what we eat on. I've got some photographs of children in the 30s eating off those tables. And this is all for Chinese New Year. They did a special Chinese meal a couple of weeks ago, and so the hobby horse was because it was the year of the horse. So upstairs are dormitories, washroom.
And you're because obviously the school's been around for a long time. With the dormitories, are they still group dormitories?
Yes, until you move down into when you get to we have areas of the school. So you start off as a sand kid, which means you're little. Then you go to be a cottage kid, where you're a little bit bigger. House kids live on the top corridor, and then you move down to somewhere called the shack, which is an outside building, and they still live in rooms of 3 or 4. But when you get to be a carriage kid, so that's when you're one of the biggest kids in the school, and it would normally be, we refer to them as kids all the time, that's just the way it's been. When you get to be a carriage kid, you'd probably be 13 plus, but it depends on the availability of space. And then you get a room on your own. And a lot more responsibility. Just have a look in the art room, because it's another lovely room. Hello, can we just have a quick look? We're doing a podcast as we walk. So.
Hello. All right, so there's lots of light in here and a really high ceiling.
Yeah.
What was this room originally, do you know?
I'm guessing there was a hatch over there. I'm guessing, could it have been a dining room or something? I'm not sure.
Because you've got this huge window with
Yes.
aspect out onto the ground.
Yes, it's another. I mean, the windows are lovely here, and the light in all of the rooms. You know, you saw the dining room, the light in there, and the dining room, and the light in here is just lovely.
Again, lots of space for the students to partake in whatever activities that they would like.
Yes. And again, there'll be open time, and some of the students who are doing GCSEs and things, they might be able to have the key anyway and come in later or something like that. Occasionally you get someone, some years you get children bring up in the meeting, you know, I propose that if we're working in the art room, we can be up until 1 in the morning or something like that, so they can access it if they want to. They haven't done that this year, but it does happen from time to time.
And then it's discussed and then they vote on it.
Yeah, we just decide, I mean, we look at them and, well, obviously you'd vote for them, wouldn't you? Bless their hearts, you know, they want to do work in the art room. But obviously, if Julie came in the next day and there was a huge mess, she might bring up in the meeting, actually, I don't think that's a very good idea because you guys didn't clean up after yourselves. But mostly.
And again, because you've all got that mutual respect between staff and students, they would accept that as, okay, you've made a mistake.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I have. I'm really sorry. Yeah.
And some people might get really angry about it. You know, I'm not talking about adults, but other children and things might get really cross about it. Deal with it. You know, I did it wrong. Yeah, I probably won't do that again, or if I do, I won't do it much.
And when students do get crossed by other students' behaviour, that's allowed too.
Yes, sure. Yeah, I mean, not to tyrannise somebody else, but if you're in a school meeting and you feel strongly about something, you're allowed to. Yeah, I'm really angry about that. You know, it really upset me. And thanks, Julie. And it's about, for the children. Just a moment, we'll get out of the noise. For the children, it's about justice. It's about me coming to the meeting. We have our meetings in here.
This is the entrance hall to the main house, isn't it? Because that's the front door to the
Yes, I would say this must have been a lounge or something. You'd have come straight in, and probably there's two.
And there's an original
here.
fireplace on either
Yes,
side, but you've also got this amazing wooden staircase going up.
And then there's two lovely wooden rooms. If we just go in here, they're all wood panelled like this one. So I'm thinking this must have been the posh end of the house. I think the other end.
And now it's a lovely open space for your meetings, but also you've got a table tennis table there. Oh, I see. So this is almost like the library.
Yes, it has been a library here in the past. And over there it's exactly the same.
And again, fireplace, wood panelling, floor to ceiling.
Yeah.
Beautiful spaces, lovely big windows. And obviously your mini grand.
Well, we were donated that.
Really nice. And so these spaces are just open up for the students to use?
Yes, I mean, this is open to play in. But if they were to junk it, you know, if they were messing about because of the piano and things, then somebody would probably come in and, you know, this is not the equality between the adults and the pupils doesn't mean that we all sit by benignly. You know, if I come in here and I hear some people roughhousing, I will go in as a Summerhillian, not as an adult, not as the principal of the school, but I'll come in and go, "Hi guys, what are you doing? You know, don't mess about in here. You're going to upset. You're going to hurt the piano."
And just as anybody else.
Just as one of the big kids would do, or one of the younger kids would do. You know, and they won't go, "Oh, so he says." They'll just go, "Yeah, okay." So, and obviously when pupils come and they're new, they do have a bit of a, you know, oh, the grown-ups, because that's what...
Well, they've got to learn the different relationships.
But they very soon, you know, the next step is normally a bit of cheek, because they feel they can. and then they balance out, actually we're all just people. So our school meetings held in here twice a week. Chairman always stands there.
By the fireplace.
Just, always leaning on here. Chair stands here. Secretary sits there taking the minutes, and people just sit around on the floor, around the edge of the room on the floor.
So is it like a circle?
No, you just sit wherever. Yeah, I sit on there because I've got a bad back. People sit there. Sometimes people sit on the stairs, but most of the children just sit on the floor, cross-legged and lean against the wall or something. It's not formal at all, but it's very formal.
Yes.
You know, there is a way.
Everybody, so it has a formal manner, but
a very formal manner, but it's an informal occasion. And that we were just talking about, you know, being able to express feelings. It's important to children that they know something was done. So we don't talk about punishment. We don't like the word punishment because in a way we don't really believe in that. We talk about fines. So all throughout my childhood, I was surprised when I grew up to discover that fine actually means a monetary fine. I never knew that because the word fine here means a strong warning or a litter pickup, or it means that a consequence for what you've done. Probably not a very great consequence, but you know, it's something that you... And it makes the other child, the victim, feel better. But they might go out arm in arm, chatterboxing, best friends, even though they've just had a case against each other in the meeting. It's about, you know, he did something or she did something, it offended me or it upset me.
So you've got the one child has accepted the fact they've done it, and the other child has accepted there's a consequence, and they're both happy.
And the meetings voted on it, and decided very often they'll get what we call a warning. So you can get a strong warning, which basically means don't do it again. We will probably fine you if it happens again. You can get a reminder, which means, yeah, you really shouldn't have done that. Don't do it. It's not quite as harsh as a strong warning. And they matter. You know, they matter because this is your peers all sitting around you making that decision. Not really a judgment, but a decision. And it's very, very effective. Very effective. I'm not saying it stops bad behaviour straight away because, as we've said, they're children and children need to learn as a process. But it makes everybody really understand, you know, what right and wrong is and what's okay and what's not okay. And it's an amazing process. It really is. And I get to watch it twice a week. Which is lovely. We always used to have visitors in. We get a lot of visitors, obviously, and we used to always have them into the meeting, but we do it less now because privacy is becoming more of an issue, and sometimes you feel a bit uncomfortable about. So we might look through the cases. The secretary might go through the cases and see, well, what's a nice straightforward case? We don't want anything kind of personal coming up in front of strangers. So
that's absolutely true, because otherwise it devalues the emotions of the children there.
But I mean, 30 years ago, nobody would have noticed because life was different then, you know, that was just a different way of doing things. But now it's very much more like that. So I wrote a book called Barefoot in November, which is about child rearing, and I've just put it on Audible, actually. I've just done an Audible copy, which was interesting. And it is about child rearing, but it's about looking at what we do in Summerhill and how it might be moved into the home, because obviously not everybody wants to send their child here and not everybody can or is interested, but there are various aspects of life here that I think move very well into the home. So I was trying to give an explanation of things and methodology of child rearing, but actually looking at it, it's also a kind of a bit of a pattern for life. I think it isn't just for people with children to read. I think it's for lots of people to read, because it's about our attitudes towards one another and our attitudes towards young people and our attitudes towards education. So really, I think it's something, one of the reviewers, I can't remember who it was, somebody reviewed it in a letter in the Times or something, I think, and was saying, you know, everybody should read it. Actually, it's not just for mums and dads, but unfortunately, because it's called a child rearing book, people tend to just say, oh, well, I'm not going to read that.
Oh, no, that's really interesting. The other thing which was of interest with going around, was mentioned sort of right at the beginning, is that you have students from all over the world here.
We do.
What's attracting them from all the different...
Philosophy. The philosophy of Summerhill, you know, my father's books have been translated all over the world. And we've had a number of education departments from other countries coming, because they're wanting to make changes in their education system, and they come and look at us as well. And I'm really glad that they do that. I think it shows great foresight, because I think one of the things that's sadly lacking here is that the people in power have always ignored us. In fact, have actually tried to close us down, let's not forget, in
Yeah,
2000.
you faced quite a lot of challenges, haven't you?
Yeah, we have, and I just feel we have so many lessons here. You know, we live and we see this every day, and we can tell people what we're doing. And there are so many things that could be learned, particularly with all of the diagnosis of children with different problems. We have answers. We see children come here with diagnosis, and within a term, you wouldn't be able to pick them out from anybody else. We recognise it, but we don't acknowledge it. They get on with their lives, they're equals in the Summerhill community as all of us. They have time and space to play or to go to class, to find out who they are and how they feel about things. And a large portion of the problems just float out of the window. Now, when you've got a system that works like that, somebody somewhere needs to come and say, actually, I think that's worth looking at, because we might be able to learn some lessons from it. But it's always been the case, you know. I'm just disappointed that nobody ever does that. We're always just we're the hippies, we're the weirdos, we're the running around barefoot people, and I just think it's a shame, because we've got a lot of things that could help various bits of the education system.
But those sort of phrases are linked to some of the misconceptions of what you're about, aren't they?
I know, but there will always be such misconceptions, you know. We've always been the school that the media loves to hate. You don't often, actually in more recent years, funnily enough, since the drama came out, we've had more positive things. But, you know, we're very easy to pick holes in, because we're very different. And it's very easy for people to find shocking things to say, you know, little, what do you call them? When you know, in the press you put a, yeah, well, not a headline, but a little, phrase. You can easily find those things about Summerhill and get everybody like, oh.
But people have always challenged, haven't they, things that are different, and that's one of the wonderful things about the independent schooling sector, is it allows for innovation, it allows for difference, and one of the things, sort of listening to you and sort of as we're going round, is what you've managed to do here is, rather than asking students to fit into your school, you've adapted your school to allow the students to be themselves.
The phrase he actually used was something to the effect of, we made the school to fit the child instead of making the child fit the school, and that's absolutely what's happened.
Which is something a lot of schools are now striving to do more and more, especially with a lot of the mental health issues that students are starting school with. Now, obviously, this is an extraordinary school founded a long while ago. So what continues to drive it forward? Obviously you do as the principal, but what is driving it to keep it going?
I think it's public is driving it. It's ex-pupils are driving it. Its parents are driving it. Our family is very committed to it. So sometimes I'm not well for a bit, and they're well able to sort of take the helm. But I like to be involved as much as I can too. And I mean, I said earlier on that teachers will come and say, I'll stay for a couple of years, and then they end up. It develops into a passion, because it's just such an amazing place. It is an amazing place to be. We had a young man come from, we sometimes take students from abroad for a while. We had a young man come at the beginning of this term, Eric. He came from Belgium, I think. I'm just trying to remember. And he was here for a month. And I mean, he nearly cried when he left. He said, I need to be here. This is the most amazing place. His experience of coming as a stranger into our community. He did some drama with the children. He did some games, but he just joined in the community, and it's changed his life. He will never be the same again after having spent 4 weeks here. And he just keeps on, can I come back and do something? He wants to come back. But that's not unusual. It really isn't unusual. People, when we were making the drama here, and we had all the film, it was holiday time, the beginning of the holidays, and a lot of the children had stayed on to be extras for the drama, and we had all the conglomeration, out there of a working film crew. And one of the electricians said, and I don't remember who they said it to, they said, when you look into the eyes of these Summerhill children, it's as if they look into your soul. And I thought that was a really profound and kind of touching thing for someone who wasn't interested in education, never heard of A.S. Neil, to say about our children. Because I think I see that too. And I think when people visit, I'm not sure if your visit has been long enough, but, I bet Hugo looked into your face, and there are lots of children who wouldn't who wouldn't look at you like that.
The students we've met today have got a sense, they've got an inner confidence, absolutely do. They seem to know themselves very well and they're very comfortable in themselves.
And that's just happened as a default setting of being in this free environment.
And for those students, obviously you call them Summerhill students, what's for them afterwards? What do they go on to do to be?
Such a variety of things, you know. It's just creative staff, non-creative staff, doctors, lawyers, artists, street sweeper, you know, whatever. I mean, we've got a boy who left us, who's been showing people around the wilderness in Canada. We had another girl she was a fantastic pianist when she came. She came at about 12 and she was an amazing pianist. We had to find her a new piano teacher because our piano teacher said, I can't teach her. She was amazing. In the ensuing year she was here, she gave up the piano, and we were all thinking, you know, this is a concert pianist here and she's just given it up. She went and worked in a bank. When she left school, she went to work in a bank in London. And then she went back to, I believe she was South Korean. She went back and she's been doing yoga. So I think it's a school where people tend to be happy with changing careers as well, and finding, you know, that it would be quite unusual to get someone, I suppose if you're a doctor or something and you've done 5 or 6 years training, you would tend to stick with it. But people don't feel that they have to follow a career, you know. It's something that people can try different things. But I mean, they're just so diverse. But all of them have that one thread. They're just really good people, really good souls, you know. And
that's a wonderful legacy, isn't it? To actually know that that's what you're doing here. And
it really is.
And as we sort of draw our conversation to a close, Zoe, if you could offer one message about the future of education to our listeners, what would you like to say?
Give children a chance. I mean, I really don't like children dominating families, which is I write about in my book. I do think, you know, we have to have boundaries, and within our structure of our families and our schools, we have to have boundaries. As you've just learned, you know, the children don't decide who's going to work here and so on and so forth. But for their personal freedom, they really need to be who they are. And I don't mean they're allowed to jump about on the kitchen table in their boots. I mean they need to decide whether they really do want to go to college, whether they do want to be a mathematician, whether they do want to be high achievers because that's what their brothers and sisters and cousins have done, or whether they actually want to go in a completely different way. And they need to be heard. They don't need to be afraid of that. And I think there's so much expectation of what education is. Nobody ever sat down and thought out education. It just happened over a series of hundreds of years. It just evolved. And then people like my dad came along and went, actually, let's think this out. And so, yeah, be prepared to listen, be prepared to make changes. But I don't mean let the children do as they like, because I don't believe in that either. That's anarchy for me, and I don't buy that.
Zoe, thank you so much for giving us this rich insight into the life here at Summerhill. This is really a school that continues to challenge assumptions and inspire educators worldwide. Thank you so much for having us.
You're most welcome. It's been a pleasure to show you around, and I hope some of the listeners might at least get some surprises.
Now, to our listeners, if you'd like to learn more, do visit summerhillschool.co.uk. Be sure to subscribe to Independently Speaking for future Spotlight episodes as we continue exploring pioneering education in our independent schools. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected.
You've been listening to Independently Speaking, the podcast of the Independent Schools Association. For more information about ISA and the schools we support, please visit isaschools.org.uk.